What's good, everybody? It's your Romanpuss here with the big bad Mont Blanc Noland, the one and only blue defender, unstoppable god force, except for when he can be. He's phenomenal against the brand new cursed EX Dark Unit Roger, but he does fairly well and performs extremely well in the current meta. He excels in defense buffs, he excels in charging flags, and he can teleport between flags. It's huge. Once again, if you have not gone over his skills and his trades, take a look over real quick before we fully get into it. Homeboy is a monster, viable unit. I really do enjoy playing him, and he is really fun to play overall. So without a doubt, let's get into it. Alright, first up, let's start with stat recommendations. Now, he has large amounts of percentage damage, in case you did not catch that, so you can go full HP defense and just try and be as tanky as possible. You have ways to kill the enemy, and a lot of people's percentage damage and ways they can heal back from it, you generally surpass. You do too much damage for the people who heal back like 4s and 6%, but you do too little damage for those who heal back like 30%. So the people who heal back once you take more than 20%. So it actually works out phenomenally and works really well. I think the only major setbacks that you'll run into are people like Albert, people who heal on knockback. But generally, most of those you can anti-heal, so you'll just be able to anti-heal them, and then their knockback heals will become irrelevant for you. So overall, HP defense probably your go-to. Try and be as tanky as possible and go on from there. Next, let's talk about the pros. What makes Noland good? First off is anti-heal, one of the most underestimated status effects, and I think goes a long way. It can prevent people from sustaining and allows you to wither them down without a doubt. Anti-heal is a phenomenal status effect. The only issue that you run into is if you can't status effect them. Now, you do not rely on this, but it is very helpful, so it is a huge pro. Next, you have high percentage damage. You have 15% percentage damage when you hit a knockback, which is your skill 1, and your third basic attack. So that's an automatic 50% of their HP, 15%, 1-5, let me just emphasize that, on your basic attacks and on your skill 1. Then your skill 2 does an automatic 40%, so you can hit people for a large amount, and if you inflict that anti-heal, if people heal from knockbacks, that becomes irrelevant and you negate that. Then you have your 70% defense buff. You stack 20% defense buff when you get any knockback. So all you have to do is stack that up 4 times, and you are maxed out at 70%, and you'll be charging, you'll be thriving, you'll be super tanky, kind of, depending on the unit that you're fighting. Hopefully you're not fighting someone with ignored defense. Then, while you're above 70% HP, you can charge a flag to 150%, which allows it to slow runners down a bit. That's the best thing that it's for. I wouldn't say it stops runners, but it slows them down. I can tell you that, especially since you don't have immunity to knockback. We'll get into that in a second. You are immune to status effects on your flags, so you don't have to worry about anyone status affecting you, whether it be stuns, whether it be freezes, candies, whatever it may be. You are not getting status effect, and it is the greatest thing in the world, and it feels so nice to have it. I shall not lie. Then you have solid CDR with your skills. You don't have to worry about building like 2 insane cooldowns with your skills when you build your metal set. So generally, I think you can go for tankiness. We'll get into the metal set recommendations later on in the video. And on top of that, you're generally pretty good against percentage damage. You have a lot of things that heal you back when you take percentage damage. So really nice. It's nice for tanking Roger and allows you to survive and maintain some sustainability while you're going throughout the battle. Alright, now let's talk about the cons. What makes him bad? I'll be honest, playing Noland, he does have his weaknesses. There are several units out there in the meta that will destroy you, so just be careful of that. First off, you have the low damage reduction. You only have a 30%. It is useful, but it only goes so far. 30% is actually just the generic baseline that prevents most attackers already have a 30% built in, so usually you're still going to have like 30% damage increase against you, so just things to watch out for. That's why if you can build this in your metal set, I think it'll go a long ways. Next, you have really low base attack, so don't expect to be doing damage on the generic base damages that you have. If you want to build attack, you can, and it'll help a little bit, but I generally think just going full out tank is probably your best bet. Up to you. If you want to build some attack, that is entirely your choice. Next, your regular damage is low overall without the percentage damage, so shields are kind of annoying. So shields kind of can be a counter. I was fighting Yamato, hybrid Yamato. That thing is girthy, and it takes forever to get past the shield, and since you can't percentage damage her shield because she's not getting knocked back, you run into a little bit more trouble. So that's where building damage could become useful. Granted, not that many shield units are existing in the meta or in general. So without a doubt, I think shield users can destroy you. Just be careful of those. Yes, you are immune to status effects from Hybrid Yamato, but just getting through her shield and the raw damage that she can do can whittle you down. Next, you are not immune to status effects off your flag. So if you get knocked off your flag and you don't get back on before someone shoots a status effect off you, you could be in big trouble. Another thing to be worried about. Then you don't have knockback to knock down, which brings me into that. So that's kind of a big one. There's so many knockbacks that exist in the game now. Used to be not many knockbacks in the early days of OpenBR, so generally you didn't need that trait. But now it's kind of a must-have, unfortunately. So make sure you do your best to position yourself well enough to where if you do get knocked back, you can still be on your flag. This takes a little bit of knowing what enemies can do, so it'll come with time and practice as you learn what units do and what you can do, and where to position, and hopefully the enemy doesn't try to throw you off. And on top of that, you can't charge flags while the enemy's on it. Luckily, you don't have anything that relies on the flag being charged a certain amount, but you do have to be concerned about someone knocking you back, taking your flag, you getting back up, trying to push them off, and then they knock you off the flag again, and they just start taking your flag again. So people can wither it down. It can be difficult to get the flag charged back up, depending on who you are fighting. Alright, now let's get into characters you are strong against. I wish this list was bigger, but to be honest, Noland in general is just a very solid unit. He's a good defender, but he's not a great defender. There are people out there that do certain things in certain aspects better than he does, but he's just a generic all-around great unit. He can fend for himself, he can get the flags, and he can tank decently well. So, first things first, the characters that you're strong against is going to be the Dark Unit Gold Roger. You are built to counter him. That is entirely what your source is around. So, generally, you can beat him. But the thing is, he can still take a flag from you if your flag is not charged. If your flag is only half charged, he can use the knockbacks, push you off the flag, and be able to take it from you if you are not careful. If you can get one perfect dodge off on him, though, I think you'll have a breeze holding him down. But in general, you'll be able to fight him when he gets off that. He can't really do much beyond that, so you can just sit there and kill him after that. So just get him below the 97% HP, inflict him with anti-heal, and he'll be dead. Beyond that, status effectors in general are fairly weak against you. Like Paraswell's not going to do much to you, Boa Hancock's not going to do much to you, Uta really doesn't do that much to you in general, but you do have to worry about them knocking you off and then status affecting you. So overall, you're solid against those, but that's probably your most optimal characters that you're great against. Next, we got the Noland Counters. I'll be honest, this one's been driving me insane because there are so many of them. First one that exists that will one-shot you over and over, even when you are at max defense buff, is the one and only Film Red Shanks. 2 years later, and that thing is still the most overtuned unit in the entire game. Why Bandai keeps making blue units that cannot remove state effects, I am not sure. If you don't know what I'm talking about, read Shanks' statuses and read what he does, and then you'll understand why it's frustrating to play blue units against him. Anyways, Film Red Shanks, your #1 counter. Be careful of that. You generally cannot fight that at all because he has anti-stagger, he's going to knock you back, he shreds your HP and cuts that down. He has so many things going against you, and it truly, truly, truly hurts. Next, you have Expensive Luffy. The blue Luffy can be troublesome because of his attack buff. He can hit you. He has the immunity, that's the invincibility, that's the word I'm looking for. He can use that, he can stack his attack buffs on you. It can hurt, so you just have to be careful with that. That one's not insanely difficult, but it is somewhat of a counter. Then on top of that, you have Gear 5. This thing is just spamming skills. Just let him try and spam his skills, because Gear 5s will almost always just spam their skills overall. If they have the big Bomba skill that like blows up the whole map, you'll probably die. But if you can get past that or perfect dodge that or wait that out and stall it out, then you'll generally be alright if you can hold it out for that. So be careful with that. Gear 5 can be troublesome, but you can hold against him. Next, you have Albert. Albert destroys anyone with a defense buff. You give yourself defense buffs, he will destroy you. It's just how it is. All these ignored defense skills that exist in the meta are kind of cursed, and Gear 5 is the one who ruins all the units with those. So, anyone with knockbacks overall in general is the rest from there, so just be careful of knockbacks because they can push you off the flag and take your flag, and then they don't have to actually fight you. So, things to be careful of as you are going throughout the game. Now, time for medal set recommendations. What do I think Mont Blanc Noland should have, and what should you use? Well, his damage reduction is really low, so getting that up could be very helpful. Now, I believe the highest amount of damage reduction you can receive on any medal set at this point in time is, I believe, 20%. You can give or take a few percent. I think there's one that can hit like 23% or something, so very minute, but it's there. So in general, roughly 20% is the amount that you can add. He only has 30, so getting up to 50% could be a big bonus. So if you would like to run the Enel set, that could be a huge deal and would be very beneficial for you. If you would like to run skill 2 cooldown to get that anti-heal back and that 40% flat hit, when you hit them with that. Could be a big deal going the Bartolomeo set. That is huge. It does have 2 old event medals, so if you don't have those, that might be a little bit more of a stretch to be able to obtain that, as you'll have to rely on the weekly shop that you would have to pay real money for. So that one's kind of, if you don't have the medals, you'd have to pay for those. The Enel set is somewhat easier to come by. You do have one of the medals is in the Cola shop, and then if you start at the green Enel, you can use his medal for the start out set. I would recommend starting either green Enel or blue Crocodile if you are starting the game. I believe they give blue Crocodile, green Enel, or red Mihawk for free at some point. So generally the Enel comes in handy for the medal, so that is a good idea. Or Crocodile is handy for his stuff as well. He is very good support too. Other than that, you could go Luffy sets if you have Gear 5. I know many people have Gear 5. I'm sure they will rerun him many times in the future, so if you don't have him now, you might be able to get him for a discounted cost in the future. You could run that with the Raid Luffy medals. It does fit really well, and this one actually gives him a little more sustain because he gets a 30% heal when he knocks back, which Noland knocks back a lot, in case you haven't known by now. And lastly is a very old medal set. This one is good for tanking, but in terms of getting your skill cooldowns, I don't like it as much. So this one's probably my least favorite, but can still be viable, is the Pure Dressrosa Damage Reduction set. Has the Fujitora, the Sugar Medal, and the Courtesan. Those are some older medals. They are an option if you choose to go that route. I don't particularly think this one's the best out of them, so I generally think the Enel set's probably going to be the most optimal for you, or the Bartolomeo, or the Luffy. Honestly, I actually like all 3. I do truly like all 3. And then I didn't actually add this on my chart, but the Kaido set, you can never go wrong with the Kaido set. It's always just a phenomenal set and does really well all around. So I think the top 3 are definitely better than the Kaido set, but it's up to you and what you want to run. So anyways, that is all I have for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe. Let me know if I missed anything, and I will try to pin it and leave notes about it down in the comments below. So that's all I have for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Check out my Twitch, Twitter, Discord. Links are in the description. I'm Romanpuss, and I'm going to be taking off. Yeah, holy! Peace, beautiful people.